delegation is a panel discussion, so hopefully you went to the restroom, you have all your drinks, because this will be a 30-minute, but it'll fly by, I am sure, because of the topic that they will be discussing. So do you struggle to successfully delegate projects to others? How do you motivate people to actually do the work on time? So if you want to improve your capabilities and leadership skills, you need to learn how to delegate and how to motivate others. And the leader of this next session is someone who is very good at doing that. I can attest to that personally. And she has gathered together a group of experts who are going to help address those questions. So if you would, please welcome the immediate past president of the National Speakers Association of Michigan, the assistant professor of supply chain management at Michigan State University.
Hey!
Elected to the board of directors of Toastmasters International and distinguished Toastmaster Carol Prahinski.
What a compliment. Thank you. Even though she whispered, "Go green! Go green!" I would like to invite our two panelists today. Amy Moored is a graduate. Hold on a second, I gotta give the introduction. All right, she's a graduate from the U of M, and I'm not gonna whisper it. Business School. Go girls. All right, she is currently the regional manager for Trinity Health in Grand Rapids. She's a past district governor for District 62, current finance manager for District 62, chief information officer for the campaign for Carol Prahinski for international director, and she is the member of two clubs, Mercy Health and Gun Lake Toastmasters. Please join me in welcoming Amy Moored. Our second panelist is Lisa Waalkes. Lisa is a graduate from Central Michigan University. She is currently the National Senior Human Resource Information Systems Supervisor at BDO Grand Rapids. You like that title? It was a long one, wasn't it? Yeah, but we know she's important. She is the past district governor for District 62, and she was the floor manager for the campaign for Carol Prahinski for international director. She's a member of 4 clubs, as we heard earlier. I'll go ahead and repeat them now. Kalamazoo, BDO, Fremont, and Granville Genesee Toastmasters. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Waalkes. So these ladies are walking up lots of resources, and it has me so curious. I think my first question is going to be, what did you bring to share with us?
I will start, Carol.
That was an impromptu question.
Well, one of the things that you need to do as a leader is communicate your goals and communicate where you're tracking on your goals. And I need help for this. Delegation here. Thank you, Lisa. We started the new Pathways program with Toastmasters International, and many of our clubs were using the old tracking posters. I just purchased these to have at my club to help them stay on track with their new Pathways goals and communicate where we're heading. And so they have all of those, just like they did for the traditional program, with where we're at with the programs and the different goals, to help people visualize the pieces of what they're trying to get done. That was one of the things that I brought. The other things that I brought, thank you, Lisa, is I bought my very tattered and noted up district leadership handbook. Any leader needs to have a team that knows what their jobs are. And we're lucky enough in district leadership to have a manual that gives you so many details. It gives you deadlines, it gives you dates, it gives you suggested team members to have on your team. When I first started in district leadership as the finance manager in 2010, was it, Lisa? I actually got one of these, and it was very much geared to area directors and the trio roles, but I read it then as preparing for what else might I need to know. So I began my research early, This is my newest version, the one I just got this summer. See how tattered it is, just 3 months into the year. So make sure your team knows what their objectives and goals are. And then the last thing that I brought are a couple of books. One of the things I do to learn about leadership is not only by doing and practicing in Toastmasters, learning from others like I do in Toastmasters, but I read all the time. I will tell you right now, one of the more popular authors that I'm reading is Dr. Seuss, but, and he does have some good leadership lessons, so
Yeah.
don't discount that. But these are two books that are really exciting. This first one called Get Everyone in Your Boat Rowing in the Same Direction. And this one really helped me as a district leader, especially when I was district governor, setting up what were the most important goals for us to lead. And this is a new one I just started called Leaders Eat Last. And the concept as a leader in here that they're portraying is that we support our teams first, and then we eat last. Literally, they do that in the Marine Corps, I believe is how this book starts out with the background. So I haven't read this one, but I'm really excited to. Because, Dr. Seuss is taking up my time right now.
All right, thank you. Lisa, how about you? What do you got there?
I too have some resources. Number one, district leader resources. Anyone that does any kind of event planning, our area directors, our division directors, our trio, any member of your club, if you're having any kind of an event, make sure that you get a resource that's called Put On a Good Show. This really talks about a lot of really good thinking that we need to do as leaders, and it's a good way to delegate your authority onto another person. Many times there's so much in our heads. I know I learned as a district leader, I've got a lot of stuff in my head, but unless I share that information or give that information to someone else, they're not going to know. Sometimes if we delegate, and I did this at first when I was a leader, I pretty much did a lot of the stuff myself. Does anybody do that? Does anybody ever try to do that ourselves? Because so many times it's easier when you're talking to yourself with that, you can say, Lisa, do this, this, and this. Well, then you try to do it. Well, it doesn't work if you want to get big projects done. It doesn't work when you do other things. So it's best to help our individuals with resources and information. So this is just a good resource that I've had. I also have books too, because I love to read. One of the things about delegation is understanding people's personalities. I have a book here that's called Personality Plus, and understanding who you're working with. If you're working with a person that's very direct, Karen, for example, Karen is what we call a choleric, meaning she wants the answer now, just give her the answer now. I, on the other aspect, am a sanguine. I like to have fun. I ramble too much. So I'm not going to go around too much about that. But understanding the personalities that you work with is very important. So I have lots and lots of resources. I'm not going to talk about all of them. One of the things that we're talking about is delegation and motivation. One of the other ways of motivating people is encouragement and handwritten cards. If you have ever done any kind of group work, any kind of teamwork, handwritten cards nowadays are something that we don't really do anymore. And I really think handwritten cards are a really important part of whole motivating other. And of course, food and candy and things like that. That's always a good motivator. You can give these to people, and people, if there is food where you go, people come. So those are just some of my resources that I have.
Wonderful. If they're interested, I hope people in the audience can come by and see your books later, just to take a closer look at them. So let's start out with the word delegation, and I'm going to define it. It's the ability to get the work done through others. Why should we delegate? What's the important reason why we should delegate? And Amy, let's start with you.
Can I tell a little bit of a story?
Certainly.
Okay. For those of you, Carol mentioned, I was the district governor a couple years ago of District 62. And when I started the role as district governor, I was a horrible delegator. I really was. And the first step is letting, is recognizing your problem. So, yeah, so I was not a good delegator. But one of the things that I was able to learn that year as district governor was when I should be delegating and recognizing maybe I should have delegated that a little bit sooner in my thought process. The year started out, and like many new leaders, I thought I should be doing this, and I thought I should be doing that, I thought I should be doing this. And I was doing a lot of things. And some of them were the right things and some weren't. And the year was moving on. I think it was about December. I don't think we'd started any new clubs. We weren't distributing our district newsletter yet. There's a few other things that weren't happening that really should have been as a good district leader. But there was also a lot of things that were in the works. My team was out well educated, they knew their roles, they were attending the DEC meetings, the district executive committee meetings. We were excited and people were really engaged, and we were doing a lot of that building work. So we continued on, and then clubs started to charter. The
Spartan.
MSU clubs chartered, a couple others chartered, and things started rolling. They really started picking up momentum and going in the right direction. But I was still doing more than I should have for my role. And it all happened the week that I turned 40. Maybe it was a sign. That week, Lisa Waalkes and Margaret C. had a kickoff meeting scheduled for a new club that was north of Grand Rapids, and I was going to join them for the kickoff meeting. And 2 days later was our TLI, our Toastmasters Leadership Institute, that was scheduled in Grand Rapids. And we had team members set up to do the Toastmasters Leadership Institute, but I had lots of stuff I was doing and participating on. I was going to go to this kickoff meeting. And the morning that I started out, my car slipped off the road in an icy storm, and my car was totaled. I was fine. My car wasn't, but that's okay. The district bookstore was in my trunk, and it survived. But I didn't go to the kickoff meeting. And guess what? It went off perfectly, and the club chartered with more than 30 members. The Toastmasters Leadership Institute, one of the main people that was coordinating that also had a pretty big tragedy. Her father was in the hospital, and she had to pull away, and we had another team member that really stepped in to fill those shoes. When I arrived at the Toastmasters Leadership Institute that Saturday, everybody was, it wasn't that anyone was different, but all of a sudden, I was seeing it differently. Spencer, I think, helped me out with the bookstore that day. Another person emptied my car from the bookstore and did this and did that. And I was realizing that I don't have to lug in the whole bookstore. I don't have to run the bookstore. I don't have to be dealing with all the details of the TLI. And it was a wonderful TLI. It was a great event. Everyone had lots of fun. In that moment, a switch flipped for me. I knew that I had a really good team, and I knew that I needed to trust the team to do the work. And the rest of the year, I didn't do as many of the things that I was doing. Other people did them. Like I said, the rest of the year really picked up momentum. We had a visit from International President Murad that year. We had a great Toastmasters conference. We had wonderful TLIs that followed that. And we finished the year as a select distinguished district. And everyone was excited and motivated, and it was so much fun. The first half of the year, I can tell you, when I was trying to do more than I should, was not as fun. I had personal conflict going on with it. Should I be doing this or should I not be doing this? But it was fun. I learned more the second half of the year. I think all the other members on the team learned more, and we achieved their goals. If I didn't have that switch flip, I don't believe the district would have been successful. And so that's my story about delegation.
Lisa, do you mind if I go on to the next question?
Sorry,
All right,
Carol.
I think she gave a very good answer of why we should delegate, so I'm okay to go on to the next question, which is, Lisa, why don't you delegate more frequently? And what holds you back?
As far as me personally, or just people in
You can
general,
change
me
it.
personally, I can do me personally and people in general.
Go ahead.
I tend to be a procrastinator. Is anybody else a procrastinator? Yeah, Amy and I are very good procrastinators. We're very good. And I think sometimes when you procrastinate, you think about it in your head and you get, you start telling yourself that, okay, I'll be able to get this done. I'll be able to do that. And then if you keep thinking it in your head, you're never going to get it done. So the idea on, why don't we delegate more frequently? It's because we're thinking that we can do it ourselves. And you heard Amy's story. We need to rely on our team members. And we need to, once you come to that realization that you have a team of individuals that are very capable of doing things, who are very capable and want to help out. They want to do things. So once you realize that you have team members that are able to do that, you're going to be able to start delegating a lot more. And I know I've had that happen in my life personally. I know lots of other people have had that happen. One of the other big things is sometimes we don't necessarily have all the processes and procedures in place, and we feel bad that we don't necessarily have those, but reach out to individuals that have done that or made that mistake or been in that position before. Because if you reach out to individuals that might have done it before, they can tell you what went right and what went wrong. We do that with all of our conferences. At the end of every single one of our conferences, we have a get-together and we talk about what went well and what didn't go so well, and how can we improve upon that. So if we take that delegation away, give the motivation, give the empowerment to other people, because that's what we really need to do. As leaders, we need to empower people, and the more we empower people, the better whatever we're working on is going to be.
Are there any other reasons you could think of why we should delegate? Let me ask Amy to add to
There's
this.
really a lot of them. One is the collective wisdom of a team.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need to change the question.
Okay.
I want to stay with Lisa's question,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is why don't we delegate more frequently?
Why don't we delegate?
Yeah, if I could,
Okay,
I apologize.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so procrastination is one, I think that Lisa mentioned. A second is we think we know how to do it. A third one that I run into a lot is trust, and I think it goes back to what Lisa mentioned with policies and procedures. Sometimes, if I don't think someone knows what to do, I don't necessarily trust them to do the task. Or if I've observed the person do a different task, not so successfully, again, I put that in my head, oh geez, they weren't so good at this, so they're not gonna be good at this. But the trust you build the trust by having some of those standards and processes in place. And that's one way to combat the trust issue.
Okay, thank you. I have 4 components of delegation. I'm going to go through each one, but I want us to spend some time on each one of them. Okay, the first one is that we decide what to delegate, and we should, and this is according to the research, focus on the outcome, what we expect of that other person, and not the process. Both of you have mentioned the process, and I want us to look at the contrast of the process of how to do it, which is very different from the delegation of what to do. So we in Toastmasters, I'm going to make this dichotomy for a little bit, is we focus on the how to do it, which is the training, which is so important in every role that we have, is getting trained on how to do it. But when we're delegating, we really should focus on the what, which is the outcome associated with what we're delegating. If we're saying you're going to be in charge of the TLI, the outcome is a successful event, and that people are trained, and you can fill in that lots of people attended. These are the outcomes. And so we're not necessarily, as we're delegating, we might have to tap into the process, but true delegation is really about the what. Can you expand on this further? Because we have been we've been incorporating them together like they're supposed to be together. And the way it's been defined by research is that they should actually be thought about separately. Can you expand on that? Either one of them. Amy.
I have an example that just recently happened at work. I was working with one of my analysts on a project, and he's actually using some tools that I'm not familiar with. They're technical tools that I do not know how they functionally work. And when I described what the project was, I did specifically say, here are the goals of what we're trying to identify. I also told him we had a detail sheet and then a summary sheet. And I also told him how we could identify that the detail sheet matched the summary and the message so that the details did support, so we didn't have a calculation error or something like that. I walked him through both of those things, and then he began to ask me questions. Well, should I take this then, and should I do this formula and that formula? If you believe those are the most efficient ways to do what I'm wanting, then by all means do it that way, but this is the goal, and this is how I would know that your detail and your summary tie out and tell the story. So that one's a struggle, because lots of times you are working with people that really do want the steps. And he did, and he went through it, he came up with the processes, he figured out that process. We're gonna do this again next month. He has ideas on ways to improve the process. And again, I told him, by all means, improve it, because some of these things took too long. I agree with what you're suggesting. But I still keep reiterating and focusing him back on what the goal is and how he'll know that he reaches the right goal or the right answer in the project. And that's where I've been coaching him and really trying to give him the empowerment on the other pieces.
Okay. Do you want to add to it, or do you want to go on to the next item? You don't know what the next item is?
I don't know what the next one is, so either or, doesn't really matter. You can go to the next one.
Let's go to the next one,
Yeah.
and the next one is called setting expectations. So delegation includes setting expectations, and this is where we define that goal, that finish line that Amy was just talking about. Tell us a story of when you were involved with either not setting the expectation well, the goal, or when you learned, hey, this is what I need to do. So do you have a story behind that?
I do. Setting expectations. That's really important, and one of the resources I'm going to use again, or let everyone know, is the High Performance Leadership Project. That is such a wonderful project. If you are working on any kind of project, either inside or outside of Toastmasters, it is a great resource for us to use. An example, and it's not even Toastmaster related, it's work related. We had a brand new HR person on my team, and she knew Excel a little bit, and our team relies on the Excel processes. Excel is kind of like a spreadsheet type program, and I needed to train her on Excel, and it took a while to do that, and once we got into it, she has blossomed, and I took the time and spent the time with her digging through, this is exactly how you do it and everything, and once she learned it, she just took it and ran, and now the great part is, I'm in a different position now, and she's been in that position for the last couple of years, but now we're to a point where she is the teacher of others now, and that delegation that I took in teaching her how to do that and taking that time to give her the resources and to actually do the information, now she can actually take that and teach other people. So now she's really excited about teaching other people. I don't know if I actually answered that
That's okay.
question.
Yeah, we were looking at setting expectations and defining the finish line for individuals.
Yep, and the setting expectations was, at the end of this, Caitlin, you will be able to teach others how to do the Excel project, or how to be able to do that. And it is so good in a work environment to know that you have actually set those expectations that we're going to be able to do this, and we're going to be able to train others so that we don't have to do all the work. That's really the ultimate behind any kind of delegation, is to spread the work amongst others, and then that way you're teaching others, and then you aren't going to have to do all the work.
All right, good. I'm going to go on to the third one, unless, if you guys listen to something and you both want to chime in, that's fine. Let's do following up, holding people accountable. How do we hold people accountable and not piss them off? Having this crucial conversation is so important if they're not following through. How do we do that?
That's, you said it, Carol, it's the crucial conversation. I think the first thing is understanding how you communicate with that person. Lisa alluded to that earlier when she talked about some people are direct and some people want to hear things in a different way. Some people are very objective and they want the facts. Some people hear those facts, though, as you didn't do this, you didn't do that, when it's simply a fact. The outcome wasn't met. I'm not saying that the outcome wasn't met all because of you, Carol Prahinski. Yeah, no, but the outcome wasn't met. So how do we have those conversations? I think one example, and I'll use one, Carol ran for international director this past summer, and Carol's outcome, expected outcome, was that she would become international director. Hey, the outcome was met. There was some other smaller outcomes or supporting outcomes to that overall goal. One of those was a very well-run table that Lisa led. Another was Carol wanted to have these information sheets that helped her have knowledgeable discussion with all the district leaders that she spoke with. And I was assigned that task. And I was a little behind schedule. Okay, a lot, but Carol and I had periodic conversations about where we were at, and one of the things that we actually did, and I think this was successful, was instead of me having all of those information sheets to give to Carol earlier, I gave her the Excel spreadsheet that supported all of those, and Carol used the Excel spreadsheet, and she had everything all in one. So Carol could use what she needed earlier to the convention from that Excel spreadsheet, but the same content was housed in those one-pagers. Now, I continued on, it was a big job, and we did get closer. Carol had another conversation with me about delegating. And we had another wonderful person on the team, and Carol said, I think that Glenda would be able to help you with this.
And it would be good for her.
Yes, and it would be a good benefit for Glenda because of her goals as well. Glenda realized it was a benefit for her. Within hours, Glenda and I had corresponded, and Glenda knocked out the part of the task that she needed help me with, and we got the end product finished very successfully. I knew I wasn't upholding deadlines well. It was a very busy summer. It was a bigger task than I had realized it was. But Carol approached me with, this is what I need right now. And then we modified it a little bit so I could give Carol what she needed right now. And then for the second piece, she helped me get resources to get the rest of the piece done. And she coached me on delegation. And I believe that that worked as a very successful tool for you during the convention. And as I said, we had that piece that supported the overall goal of Carol being elected as international director.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I also wanted to add, it was kind of nice to listen to your thoughts of what my goals were and my sub-goals. I had one additional goal that I'd like to mention now since I do consider it really important, which is how we were going to work together, which is tying in with the core values of Toastmasters and making sure that we had a really good team and that we were ethical above all standards. And I thought that was really important. I see that we're running close on time. Doug is actually fiddling with the timer, so it's just I might be running tight. But I wanted to jump to the fourth one, which is providing feedback. We've touched on it. What is the feedback we need to do when we're delegating? How do we give that feedback to the individual on what they did well and what they didn't do well? What sort of suggestions do you have for making that a successful conversation?
My best way of doing that, of course, is the typical Toastmasters way, use the sandwich method. Because I always think the more we come out with what you did well, and then sandwich in where you can improve. And I really like the new Pathways evaluation forms that say, let me see, I can't even remember what they say, but it says what you did really well. Yeah, what you did really well. area for improvement, and then the very last one is
Challenge yourself.
yeah, challenge yourself. I really like that format because as I'm going through the clubs and listening to the club meetings, when I see evaluators who are really new at evaluating, they use those words, and from a new person's perspective, I really like that. And somehow that's a little bit like a sandwich method, but that challenge to be even better the next time, I think is so important in each and every one of our lives. And I really like how Toastmasters has gone in that direction. So that's what that's my example. Use the sandwich method, but then also let's utilize some of the resources that we have within Toastmasters because they're helping everyone around the world, and I really like that direction.
Anything to add on that one?
The only thing that I would add on that feedback is if it's a larger project, not necessarily the content of the feedback, but set up feedback check-in points. They could be very short, they could be 15 minutes, but if it's a month-long project, you have your week one, and are we where we need to be at week one, and so forth. Then you can adjust course, or the person that you delegated to can adjust course more quickly, so it doesn't become a stressful situation later.
I'm recently finding asking an open-ended question is also working effectively for me. So I might ask the person I've delegated to, how do you think it went? And then I just sit back and listen, and they know. And sometimes we, as an individual, we tend to be our own worst critic. And so we need to lighten up because what we think went terribly wrong, it actually wasn't that bad. And so sometimes having a mentor or a guide along the journey can really help us realize we did okay, even though we're being critical to ourselves. I want to thank our panelists. Do you have any additional last words of wisdom for our audience today? Lisa, let's start with you.
My words of wisdom are learn to delegate early. Yeah, learn to delegate, rely on your team. We've all heard the acronym TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. If we all work together as a team, if we give the deadlines. I'm a big deadline person. I work for an accounting firm, so April 15th is a big deadline, even though Amy and I were saying, yeah, it is kind of a deadline, but it isn't. There's two
We didn't want to know
exceptions.
that.
But work with your team, delegate, and then especially encourage those people. Encourage the people that are on your team. Recognize them too, because people like to be recognized.
Thank you. And Amy?
My advice, I ditto everything that Lisa just said, but my advice goes back to what Carol said. Don't be too hard on yourself. I started my story about the year when I was district governor, and I said I was bad. It was a bad start off. I was getting feedback from people that were saying, yeah, you did that well, but I was being tougher on myself probably than others were. And that's okay, because I wanted to do well. If you're being a tough critic on yourself, don't stop trying. If I messed this task up, do that reflection and do it better the next time. Do not quit trying. At work, when they talk about process improvement, they say, fail fast and fail often. I don't like the word fail, so I have to do it fast so nobody notices. And keep trying so I can hit those goals. So, everyone can improve their delegation and motivation if they keep trying.
Thank you so much, Amy and Lisa. It's been a pleasure to listen to your wisdom this morning. I hope that we all learned something important that we can take home with us and practice in our skill set. I know that this was a topic that was of strong interest to our audience, and I'm so glad that a number of individuals gave you the suggestion of doing this panel. Thank you for driving the long distance. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate your leadership. And passing the baton back to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, you might need more than a minute to write down comments, share during our round robin evaluation.